Well, researchers have announced a breakthrough in their work to figure out why Minnesota's moose population has tumbled.
That's right. The findings are from the University of Minnesota and the Grand Portage Band of Lake Superior, Chippewa.
Northern News Now's Natalie Hepner takes a look at what they're learning and how it could help moose numbers rise again.
Searching for answers about the decline in moose.
And moose are a keystone indicator species of a healthy boreal forest ecosystem.
According to the DNR, there are roughly 9,000 of them in Minnesota in 2006. And by 2022, the population plunged to 4,700 animals.
This animal's in good shape, like body condition and temperature. So
This was Seth Moore in winter 2022, featured in a Northern News Now special report on moose research. He's continued searching for answers with the Grand Portage Band.
we learned through our collaring work from the last 12 or 13 years that brainworm is the leading cause of mortality for adult moose.
Their new findings, published in a research article this month, point to a new carrier of the killer parasite, snails and slugs.
We were able to conclusively prove that moose were consuming the gastropod species that carry brainworm, and this was done through a genetic analysis of moose feces.
Now researchers are trying to find ways to manage the population of those snails and slugs so that fewer moose are infected. Tyler Garwood with the U of M is one of the scientists looking into that.
We've got these new molecular techniques that really allow us to kind of dig into the ecology of especially those lesser known pieces of that transmission cycle, like the slug or snail side.
Experts say when brainworm gets into a moose, the parasite attacks the nervous system, ultimately killing them.
So what happens is they end up either dying of starvation or predation because they're much more susceptible to being preyed on by wolves.
Hoping to bring the moose population back to high numbers.
But I also would argue, just for larger Minnesota society, I think they're a really iconic species for the state.
For Northern News Now, I'm Natalie Hepner.
Natalie, thank you. Now, Moore says moose get the parasite by eating vegetation that the infected slugs and snails are living on.